Seahawks drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round in 2012, they had no idea what they had just done. When he won the job in training camp, they thought they had found the perfect complementary piece to their evolving legendary defense, the Legion of Boom. Pete Carroll created the LOB, the perfect group of players for him to implement his schematic philosophy and build the Seahawks the way he envisioned. They'd beat you up on defense, then pound you into submission with Marshawn Lynch, establishing a brand of punishment that would go down in history. Russell Wilson was almost an afterthought. Why wouldn't he be? Their defensive run-first philosophy won them a Super Bowl and got them back the very next year. But then, as almost all potential dynasties do, they started to crumble. Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, and many others moved on. And as Russ developed into a superstar, he slowly became the face of the franchise. He was their team, but Pete still clung to the philosophy he'd always known despite the team shifting around him. Russ finished top 10 in pass attempts just once in his first 8 seasons. And after the past several years where the Hawks' run-heavy game plans buried them early in games, then Russ regularly spun miraculous fourth-quarter comebacks every other week, the tectonic plates of Pete's stringent philosophy slowly started shifting. He's realized that his philosophy has failed, and that realization has brought change, which is why the Seahawks are now in first place. A system built around Russ had never been the plan. That was not who they were. But now, he's become the plan, and the Seahawks are finally letting him cook. Passing percentage on first down is a good barometer of how pass or run-oriented a team is. Back in 2018, the Seahawks were dead last in first down pass percentage. By electing to run the ball early and often, they limited their ability to score early in the game. But now in 2020, they are second in pass percentage on first down, relying on Russ to lead the team and the organization. He's on pace to break Peyton Manning's single-season touchdown record of 55. He has the highest passer rating in the league and is the favorite to win his first MVP. He can beat you on the ground, he can beat you through the air, and even if you have the perfect defense called, he can beat that too. Here the Cardinals are playing cover 7 box, which is a coverage we've talked about before. You can even see Jordan Hicks and Buddha signaling box with their hands. It's a man-match quarters concept, where the 4 defenders form a box over the 3 receivers to match their routes. Hicks has the first in, Campbell has the first out, then Buddha has the first deep in, and Pat P the first deep out. Think of it as a combination between man and zone principles to create the tightest coverage possible. The Seahawks are running a post wheel or peel concept where Tyler Lockett runs Pat down the field to open the wheel route for Greg Olsen. Since Campbell has the first out, Hicks is leveraged really far outside since he's matching the first in, so Olsen is wide open. Since Buddha doesn't get a second deep threat, he brackets Lockett, who converts his post to a vertical since he can't cross Buddha's face. This is the no way you throw it there read in Russ's progression. But for him and Lockett, that's just not a thing. You can see the confidence Russ has throwing deep. He sees Olsen wide open, but he wants it all. When Buddha tries to locate the ball and doesn't see it, he gets confused, which clears the path for Lockett. Pat P's in a trail technique since Buddha is topping Lockett in the bracket, so he's naturally out-leveraged but still in extremely tight coverage. He's 2 inches taller and his arms are 2 inches longer, but the throw drops in absolutely perfect and he simply cannot believe it. This is maybe the greatest throw I've ever seen, but for Danger Russ, it's just another day. As the Seahawks have transitioned to an aggressive pass-first attack, they've borrowed some of the most aggressive play calls from other teams in the league. This is the famous Jet Chip Wasp concept the Chiefs ran in the Super Bowl. It's designed to look like a cross-dagger concept, but DK, like Tyreek Hill did, flashes back to the corner after the safety has flipped his hips. The Hawks had actually set it up earlier in the game, but with Lockett running the cross and DK the dig. After Russ diced up the Pats' zone defense, they started playing more man coverage in the second quarter. Last year's Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore, shadowed DK for most of the game, so when Russ sees him in coverage in the slot and a linebacker on the running back, he knows it's probably man. The Patriots are playing one robber, with one safety playing the low hole rat and the other playing a deep middle zone. Gilmore is excellent at staying within his technique and executing his assignment within the play call. He maintains his outside leverage on DK since he has help inside. If DK runs a slant or drift or something like that, Gilmore can deliver him to the rat. And if he runs a climb or go or anything deep, Gilmore can guide him towards his post safety help. He's really just funneling him to one of the two defenders. Then the moment DK makes his move, Gilmore will quickly undercut the route to make a play on the ball. That type of coverage would work on most any normal route, but Jet Chip Wasp is not a normal route. The key to Wasp working is for DK to sell upfield hard enough that Devin McCourty flips his hips and opens the corner. The moment he does, DK immediately breaks outside and Russ drops it in 50 yards downfield. The Seahawks wisely used a formational advantage to stress the defense. By aligning Lockett on the other side, McCourty has to honor him and can't just shade over top of DK. Look how Russ uses his eyes to manipulate McCourty to the left to give Wasp that extra space. He gets absolutely crushed, but cooks Gilmore, McCourty, and the Pats for 6. The Seahawks have put the entire offense on his shoulders, trusting him to use his pre and post snap process to identify where and how he can manipulate Lockett or DK into advantageous one-on-one matchups. To speed up that process, the 49ers are bringing a disguised weak side fire zone blitz, which is a 5-man pressure with cover 3 zone behind it. The Seahawks counter with a 4-man spacing concept to the right with DK on an alert fade down the sideline to the left. Russ needs to diagnose the coverage, the blitz, and make sure his O-line is in the right protection so he can take the deep shot. He's masterful at identifying a defense's rules, which helps him dice them up on the regular. When you're watching him on TV, check how he uses his fingers before the snap. He'll put up either a 1 or a 2 on both hands to indicate how many blitzing defenders have to come for his receivers to be hot, which means they have to shorten their route since a blitzer is unaccounted for in protection. Here he puts up a 2 to his left and a 1 to the right. Since the Hawks are in their 2 scat protection, Russ knows the 3 sliding to the left and 2 man-on-man blockers to the right are vulnerable to extra pressure. Since these 2 to the right have one-on-one assignments, 1 extra blitzer, hence the 1, would be a free runner and it'd force Russ's process to speed up and the ball to come out quicker. Since the center Ethan Pozick is sliding to the left, there are 3 blockers for 2 down linemen. So Marcel Harris and Dre Greenlaw would have to come to be hot on that side. Since just Harris comes, but Greenlaw doesn't, Russ knows he has time to check the safety, come back, and hit DK down the sideline. What's impressive is that the Hawks were almost in the wrong protection and this dot might never have even happened. Look at Pozick pointing at Harris early in the process. The Seahawks are originally in a 3 scat protection with Pozick sliding away from Harris. So he's telling Damian Lewis, hey, if he's coming, I'm sliding to the left. Russ originally holds up a 1 and 2, meaning they would be hot when Harris blitzes. But then Pozick and Dwayne Brown point out Harris is coming and they correctly switch to 2 scat. If Russ was hot off Harris, he might have checked it down to the right, but because of his and the O-line's pre-snap process, he has time to hit DK deep. It's possible Pete and the Seahawks were hesitant to change to a pass-first philosophy because of how bad their offensive line, especially in pass protection, has been throughout Russ's career. According to Football Outsiders' adjusted sack percentage, this year they're 21st in the league, and each of the last few years they've been bottom 10. But part of Russ's magic is how good, how great he is, even with pretty awful protection. On 3rd and 6 in the low red zone, the Seahawks are running a play called Empty Right Dusty Smash, which is designed to attack this cover 2 zone the 49ers are playing. Against this coverage, offenses love sending the number 3 receiver, usually a tight end, on a seam up the middle to get a one-on-one matchup with a linebacker. If that's matched up, the double under route, specifically the first one, slides right into the space where the linebacker originally started. It's a solid concept down near the goal line, but with the Seahawks offensive line, it's almost never that easy. Russ sees Olsen fire off the line with space between him and Fred Warner, but he also sees DJ Jones flame Damian Lewis instantaneously, which means the bang-bang throw to Olsen is out the window and he can't wait for David Moore to slide in underneath. Russ does a phenomenal job at low swiping to protect the ball. When he goes to locate more, he slips on Lewis's discarded foot, flies Mission Impossible style through the air, and still makes a fantastic throw. It's even back shoulder so Moore doesn't get blown up by the corner. This is just one of the many examples of Russ taking a dead play and making lemonade. We didn't even talk about his ability to escape the pocket, which is second to none. And when Seattle's O-line gets whipped at the point of attack, he can routinely turn that into 15-yard runs or 30-yard passes to absolutely demoralize the defense. He's been this good for years, but he was never given the volume to show just how big of an impact he could have. What's insane is he's put up historic career numbers even in the Seahawks' run-first offense. He's just the third quarterback ever, including Peyton Manning and Dan Marino, to throw for 250 touchdowns through his first 9 seasons. And the whole time he's been playing on a team that's limited his opportunities to do that. Him, Pete Carroll, and the Seahawks organization are in an astoundingly unique situation. They won a Super Bowl with a defensive run-first philosophy that limited Russ's ability to lead the franchise. And obviously, it worked. The Legion of Boom was a historically great team, but the 2020 Seahawks are the complete inverse of that team in every possible way. Pete's philosophy had handicapped them the past few seasons, and by changing that philosophy, they're admitting it no longer works. But by doing that, the organization and team are better than they've been in years, and Russ has completely taken over and dominated the NFL. The Seahawks know that this year, there's just one way to win. Pass first, run second, play defense last, and let Russ cook.